Hello, my name is Marissa Mendoza, and for my paper, I wrote about analyzing Hurricane Katrina before, during, and after the disaster. For this paper, I split my paper into multiple sections, the first being introduction, and then the lack of preparation in response during the Hurricane Katrina, media's effects during the disaster, Blacks at a geographical and economical disadvantage, and then finishing with the conclusion. For the lack of preparation in response during Hurricane Katrina, I start out with picturing this racial social system in sort of the shape of a pyramid. On the bottom, I I pictured blacks being there because they have the lowest income and they are seen at having more of a disadvantage than what the white elites would be, sort of if they were on the top. I take the social system and I add it to a study that was done. And within this study done, it was primarily made of Black people, and it was about how those people chose to not evacuate. And out of these Black people, about 92.5% of them did not evacuate at all. The study takes these people and they are categorized into four different groups. The first one is a perceived susceptibility, and then perceived severity, perceived barriers, and then a cue to action. So in the perceived susceptibility, that gets split into two groups. That one is optimistic about the outcome, and then religious faith and coping. The ones that were optimistic about the outcome, those were the ones that had been in a hurricane before and they were okay. So they figured if they've been through it, if they've been through it the first time, they'll definitely make it the second time. Those that were religious sort of had the same idea. They had believed that if God got them through the first one, God will get them out through the next one. The perceived severity, that one was based on the timing of weather reporting. So many of them, they had thought this hurricane would be sort of like the last few hurricanes where it wouldn't be that bad. But then as it got closer, about 1, 2 days before, the media started saying how severe the storm would be, which sort of hindered their preparation. And they weren't allowed to just get up and leave because it was so last minute. And a lot of them don't have the money to just be able to leave like that. The next one was perceived barriers to action. This one consisted mostly of financial barriers. A lot of them didn't have much money at all to just go because they didn't have money for transportation, food, gas, hotel. A lot of them didn't even have their own car. So when it was just kind of last minute, they had no money just to take a bus. The last one being cue to action. This is similar to perceived severity in a way that they place their trust on the media, and like the media said, last minute they weren't able to leave, but this also has to do with a lot of evacuating the elderly people. Elderly people couldn't just get up and leave because of their age, so a lot of people chose to stay with their elderly loved ones. Therefore, they had to ride out the hurricane with them. I then take those four groups and I compare them to this chart. I mostly focus here on the race aspect and then the income aspect. We can see that a lot of the population is primarily Black, and then we have a little bit that are white. And then if we go down here, almost half of the population makes less than $50,000, which is not that much. So you can imagine trying to grab your family and then just wanting to do everything you can to protect them, but you don't have the money to do so. So that hinders the Black race during this hurricane. So then I go into talking about the media's effect during the disaster. And the media negatively portrays Black people as sort of these violent and armed people when in reality they're not. Uh, the media also explains that because they chose to not leave, they should not be given any sympathy or any extra help because they chose to stay. Washington politician Rick Santorum, he made the claim that people that stayed put during the hurricane should not receive any sort of aid, and they also should be penalized because they didn't want to leave, and now they're suffering all of these consequences. When in fact, we know the reason why was because they just didn't have the money or the time to leave. Going off of this, the media, because they focus so negatively on the behavior, it kind of got the National Guard involved. Because, like, if you think about it, when we see any sort of war type movies, we see a lot of chaos and just all this horrific things. So a lot of the media portrays Blacks negatively, but if we actually look at what's going on behind it, a lot of the media specialists don't exactly have a lot of disaster specialists that can focus on the hurricanes. Most reporters, they lack the understanding of emergency management issues and societal response. So there's a lot of bias that goes into what they think is going on, but they don't know the actual facts of what's going on, such as these lower income people not being able to leave rapidly because of their financial situation. Therefore, they place this negative image on these Black people. Going into Blacks at a geographical and economical disadvantage. Geographically, it is common to see that Blacks live in the poor area, so in the city where it's affected more by the hurricane, whereas whites live up in a safer location so that it's not as affected by the hurricane. This provides a unequal distribution between the race. So within a few years, we see the race population or the Black population drop from 67% to 60% in 2010. A lot of Black residents, they saw a lot of hardships economically. A lot of them could not take loans. They did not have the money to fix their house if it was ruined or pay for any damages. But even if they had some money, they weren't able to pay for amenities like trash or water, gas. So even if they were, a lot of them just left because they could not afford the afford what happened during the disaster. Economically, we saw some advantages, just a few. A lot of the lower class were given some aid, for students, one was the Pell Grant. So they were able to get some tuition that helped them for school. Some other laws that provided assistance was the disaster relief employment and unemployment extensions. Another one was a tax relief for businesses and individuals, which helped the community and a lot of the middle and lower class, and not so much on the higher class. In conclusion, I just summarized the main points of the 3 subsections, and then I talk about what we could do to help benefit the people in the future hurricanes. So one of the reasons I had stated was that we should provide more timely evacuation orders for better planning. We should provide better support systems and aid before the hurricane. So if we know that a hurricane is coming, we should give people more aid so that after the hurricane, it won't be as big of a problem, which, I mean, there still will be a problem, but hopefully it will kind of lessen the problem. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a good day today.